Republican Representative Ken Buck appears to have had enough of his fellow Republicans. Colorado congressman told Andrea Mitchell on Wednesday that he is not going to seek reelection due to certain disagreements that he has with other members of the Republican Party. In fact, here he is explaining what those differences are.
Well, I have decided, Andrea, I'm not going to seek re-election.
You too?
Yeah, I am joining Kay and probably some others in the near future, but I've decided that it is time for me to do some other things. I'm always have been disappointed with our inability in Congress to deal with major issues, and I'm also disappointed that the Republican Party continues to, rely on this lie that the 2020 election was stolen and rely on the January 6th narrative and the political prisoners from January 6th and other things. If we're going to solve difficult problems, we've got to deal with some very unpleasant truths or lies and make sure that we project to the public what the truth is.
So Ken Buck is yet another Republican who has decided to leave because of how insane the rest of the party has become. He's deeply right-wing. I do not agree with him on scores of policy issues, but to his very small credit, he's not buying into those election conspiracy theories, which should be, in a normal world, fringier than fringe. But unfortunately, they've become mainstream because, well, it's what the voters, Republican voters, believe. Yes, a majority of them still believe the 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump. And as a result, they expect their representatives to believe the same thing. And you had 147 Republicans who voted to overturn the election based on the word of a pathological liar, Donald Trump. You had 139 out of the 221 House Republicans. That's not a minority. Okay, that's a lot of people. That's the majority who bought into the lie and tried to help Donald Trump illegally seize power. That said, some of these Republicans, a lot of them actually, are in leadership positions, including MAGA Mike Johnson. So now, after he talked about, the Republican Party's embrace of the big lie, Andrea Mitchell actually followed up with a really, really good question here about his support for MAGA Mike Johnson.
Mike Johnson, the current speaker, was an architect of the false elector.
Well, Tom and I both voted to certify the electors. It was a decision that I think was the right decision under the Constitution. Mike went to the Supreme Court with a challenge to the election. I think going to the courts is one thing. Trying to move the mob from the mall up to the House floor and interrupting the congressional proceeding, a whole different issue.
Is it really a whole different issue, though? I mean, look. What happened in Congress, that's a real insurrection. The MAGA mob outside was, horrifying, obviously. But the horde of MAGA chuds that stormed the Capitol building was never meant to be the real insurrection. No, it was cover. It was a distraction. They never would have been able to, or never could have, held on to the House. In fact, when they were in there, they didn't have no idea what they were doing. No, what it was is that it was a distraction in a way to intimidate members of Congress in order to send back the electoral votes to the states, which would make room for the fake electors. This was all detailed by Steve Bannon. It's called the Green Bay Sweep. And look, the whole thing was, again, meant to be a media circus. All these allegations of fraud, all the chaos that was going on, and average Americans were meant to be confused and misled about who actually won. Oh, I mean, look at all these people. They're alleging fraud. Oh, look at all the stuff that's going down. There's, all this media stuff that's going on, and fraud. I'm hearing fraud everywhere. I guess they should, okay, maybe they'll send the electors back because the Republicans didn't certify it. Mike Pence didn't certify the election, and so I guess maybe Donald Trump did win after all. Again, that would allow the fake electors to step in and say, oh, look at all the fraud, all this alleged fraud, we have to redo it. Or, you know what, we just have to vote for Trump, because that's what the fake electors were set out there to do. That was a good follow-up from Mitchell, and it's because Ken Buck's answer was absolute garbage. It was garbage. Speaking of garbage answers, he also later on went on to not be able to answer if he'd even vote against Donald Trump. He said, quote, "Well, it's going to be a very difficult decision that I have to make if that is, in fact, the case. If it's a Trump-Biden redo, it is something that I'll have to make that decision at the time. But I am not thrilled with either of those candidates, and we'll just have to see what happens down the road." So let me translate that for you. Ken Buck is going to vote for Donald Trump if Donald Trump is the nominee. Maybe he'll hold his nose and be like, I don't like this. But I just have to do it. There's no way that Ken Buck is going to vote for a Democrat. No way, no how. Even with all the pushback that he's done on January 6th, he's still a right-winger and would still rather have Republicans in power over Democrats. So that said, him quitting Congress, I think that's him taking the easy way out. Maybe he feels morally compromised when it comes to, the Republican embrace of the big lie, because he doesn't personally believe it, and he's been at least honest about that. But at the same time, he also doesn't want to take a bold stance. Why would Ken Buck ever take a bold stance? No. Not buying into the big lie, by the way, is not bold. Maybe some can say, look at that, a Republican that actually accepts objective reality. Whoa! No. Being bold is actually fighting against the Trumps, the Greens, the Mike Johnsons of the world. And you can see very clearly that Ken Buck does not have the stomach for that kind of fight to take them on. Not in a significant way. No. And maybe it's because they saw what happened to Liz Cheney and how she was literally drummed out of the party in her own state as a result of running the January 6 hearings. And again, I don't have any love for Liz Cheney or her political positions, but when it comes to actually standing up against the Trumps and the Greens of her party, you got to give her credit for that, because she did. She did what Ken Buck is not willing to do. Ken Buck just says, nope, gotta go. I'm not going to deal with this. Bye. And that's it. He's not going to fight for, what he believes in. He's just going to go nope off and maybe get a job at CNN. I hope not. Or maybe get a nice cushy corporate job somewhere where he can, make a lot of money, probably lobbying other Republicans on Congress. That's it. Look, he's going to get big bucks regardless of where he goes. If he's on CNN, he's going to trash Trump and only Trump and ignore the rot in the party that's allowed Trump to, take it over in the first place. Or else, again, he's going to make money, representing defense contractors or something. At the end of the day, it's a cowardly move. Ken Buck is a coward.